Well, the biggest reaction is why didn't she do the things that she's complaining about? All of these things that she talked about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do everything, but she didn't do any of it. She could have done it 3.5 years ago. She could do it tonight by leaving the auditorium and going to Washington, D.C., and closing the border. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border and created the safest border we've ever had in the history of our country. She could have done all of these things, and she could still do them. She's got 4.5, 5 months left. She can go there right now. She can do all of the things, many of the things that she's talking about and complaining about. It was a lot of complaining. She didn't talk about China. She didn't talk about fracking. She didn't talk about crime. She didn't talk about 70% of our people are living in poverty. She didn't talk about housing, really. The trade deficit. She didn't talk about child trafficking that she's allowed to happen because she was the border czar and she presided over the weakest border in the history of our country. It's an invasion. I was there today, as you know, Brett. It's an invasion of our country taking place at our border, our southern border. It's a total invasion. And now it's starting at our northern border also, through Canada. And she didn't talk about any of that because she talks, but she doesn't do. It's no action. But, you know, look, other than that, it was a nice-looking room.
Mr. President, Martha MacCallum here. She said that she is promising middle-class tax cuts, and she says that if you are elected, it will cost Americans $3,900 more a year in increased taxes. She's tying all of that to this Project 2025. That's where that number is coming from. What do you say to that?
Well, she knows I have nothing to do with Project 25. They throw it out. A group of people got together. They did a thing. I haven't even seen it. I don't want to see it. I told them specifically, I don't want to see it. People know where I stand. I lower taxes. She's raising taxes. She's going to give a tax increase of 4 to 5 times what people and companies are paying right now. The country will go into a depression if they do it. She didn't talk about interest rates. I mean, the interest rates are now getting close to record rates. People can't do business. Nobody can borrow money. People can't go to the American dream and buy a house because they can't afford the interest rates. And even if they could, the money isn't available. She didn't talk about any of that. Now, if she got in, look, she's a Marxist. She always was. She always will be. She's going to leave the border open. I was there today, and the Border Patrol, as you know, gave me total endorsements and all of that. I've gotten endorsed by almost every major police group in the United States. But she is a Marxist with open borders. She's not going to have any fracking in Pennsylvania. She's going to close down the oil and gas industry, and our country is going to go bust. She didn't talk about the $35 trillion, which I was going to start paying off with liquid gold that we have right under our feet. We were going to start paying off debt, lowering taxes still further. And, you know, she wants to raise the taxes on corporations. What they're going to do is pick up and move to another country, like the pharmaceutical industry moved to Ireland and they moved to other places. Many of these industries will just they're international companies. If she raises taxes like she wants to do on companies, there go those jobs. I'm more interested in the jobs than the companies. But there go those jobs. And what's going to happen, Martha, they're going to pick up. They're going to move to another country. They're going to pick up and move to another country where they're going to be promised taxes at half the numbers that she's talking about and more than that.
Mr. President, on the issue of immigration, Vice President Harris, like many Democrats in this hall throughout this week, have used the bipartisan Senate bill and your efforts to lobby Republicans not to move forward with that, to use the issue in this election as part of this speech. She said she will sign that bipartisan bill. She, to your point, doesn't talk about executive orders that could have been launched in the beginning of the Biden administration. But how do you respond to that? And are you ready to debate Kamala Harris on September 10th, given what you heard tonight?
Well, number one debate on September 4th at Fox, and she turned it down. Because, as you know, Brett, I was willing to debate with you and Martha. Well, I was going to debate on September 4th. She turned it down. And I'm willing to debate on, I don't like ABC. I think ABC is probably the worst of the group. But I'm willing to do ABC. I was willing to do CNN with Joe Biden, and you saw what happened there. I mean, CNN does not treat me or Republicans very good, but I was willing to do it because it was the only way I could get to debate him and ask him how that turned out. But look, I am willing to debate, and I think we should do much more than one debate. But you know better than anybody, I'm ready, willing, and able because I told you yes, and she turned you down.
And on the immigration issue?
On the immigration, it's very simple. The bill was horrible. It would have allowed millions of people to pour into our country. Would have been horrible. It was a horrible bill. It was a joke. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border. I had the safest border in the history of our country. I closed it up. As president, now she'll have to get Joe to do it, but she could probably have a lot to do with that, right? Now Joe's missing. He's on a beach in California. But you know what? All she has to do, or all he has to do, is say, I want to close the border. The border is closed as of now. They don't need bills. They don't want to close the border. I stood at the border today in 100-degree weather, and I will tell you, it's a dangerous place. And I was being told by Secret Service and a lot of other law enforcement, sir, it's really dangerous here. I think it's time to leave. You wouldn't believe the things that I saw at that border. She's the border czar. Now she wants to deny that, but she's the border. In any event, she was in charge of the border. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border so unsafe as this one. 20 million people have poured into our country, many of them from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylum, and record number of terrorists. And other countries are releasing their prisoners from their jails. They're emptying out their jails into the United States of America because of her incompetence and her bad border policies. She is a horrible, horrible person to run this country. We won't have a country if she gets elected.
Let me ask you this, sir. There's been a huge appeal and momentum for women voters. She's trying to pull the youth vote, the Hispanic vote, the black vote back in her direction. Polls show that she's having some success in that at this point. So what are you going to do? What's your strategy to rebuild the momentum that you had with those voters?
No, she's not having success. I'm having success. I'm doing great with the Hispanic voters. I'm doing great with black men. I'm doing great with women because women want safety. They want safety. And they don't have safety when they have somebody allowing 20 million people into our country, many of them very dangerous people. No, it's only in your eyes that they have that, Martha. We're doing very well in the polls. We're leading in most of the polls. And in the swing states, we're leading in almost every one of them.
Mr. President, let me interrupt.
The auto workers are voting for me because you're not going to have an auto industry if she gets elected. They're going to all electric cars. All electric cars are going to be made in China. And you're not going to have, you literally will not have an auto industry. The United Auto Workers ought to be ashamed of themselves. They sold the workers down the tubes.
Two quick things as we wrap up here, Mr. President. Tomorrow, do you expect to be endorsed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And are you making a specific effort in Georgia to make up, if you will, with the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp?
Well, I just saw Brian on a very good man. Did you ever hear of a man named Sean Hannity? And he was interviewed by Sean Hannity, and he was very nice, and he said he wants Trump to win, and he's going to work with me 100%, and I think we're going to have a very good relationship with Brian Kemp, and that was on just before you people went on with that speech that we just listened to.
And RFK Jr.?
It just happened. And as far as RFK, I've had a great relationship with him over the years. I respect him. He respects me. I have no idea if he's going to endorse me. I know he's got a news conference. We happen to be in the same state. Arizona will be in the same state, but in quite different parts of the state. But it's possible we will be meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing it. He said, look, he was treated very unfairly by the Democrats. He would have beaten Joe Biden in a Democrat primary. I have no doubt about it. And they made it absolutely impossible for him. They made it that you have to get 60, 70% of the vote just to get in. And you know what?
President.
In the end, the Democrats did the same thing to Joe Biden. They threw Joe Biden out of the party.
And that's
they
why
did
we
the
saw a
same
different
thing
night
as they did to RFK.
Mr. President, thank you so
very much, sir.
for the time.
Okay,
we appreciate that.